Middle of all this mess, as you heard Mike reference, the fight over Obamacare. The bungled rollout and major website glitches now have many calling for someone to be fired, among other things. Even the president's former White House press secretary, Robert Gibbs, had this to say.
This is excruciatingly embarrassing for the White House and for the Department of Health and Human Services. This was bungled badly. I hope they fire some people that were in charge of making sure that this thing was supposed to work.
It's not going to happen. Joining me now, Leslie Marshall, Fox News contributor and radio talk show host, and Lars Larson, who's host of the radio talk show, The Lars Larson Show. Great to see you both. The reason I say it's not going to happen is because the White House stood by Ms. Sebelius on Tuesday, even as some were calling for her resignation, Republicans and Democrats alike, or at least you heard what Robert Gibbs said, and it wasn't about her specifically, but President Obama, they said, still trusts her stewardship of Obamacare. Leslie, is that the right result?
I believe it is. She did not design the website. Of course, they could not even fully implement the website, put it together, and even test it because they were waiting for the states to decide whether they'd be on it. And the expectations were exceeded in great numbers, not just 1 million the first day, so far 14.7 million.
And
by the way, in the states of Connecticut and in the district. Oh, no, absolutely. That's where one of the problem lies, is being able to register. Absolutely, no question.
But that begs the question. That's the whole issue, that they say millions of people came. This is according to, I think it's the Washington Post had this. They claim that 9.47 million visited the website. Number who completed the enrollment, this is citing Millward Brown Digital. 36,000 they're estimating, Lars. 36,000 out of almost 10 million, and that's why some are saying someone needs to get fired. That the website stinks, the rollout stunk, and there should be accountability.
Megan, I've been covering government for a long time. There are so many examples where in the private sector people would get fired. Nobody ever gets fired in government. I mean, there's a rare occasion sometimes when somebody does something particularly egregious, but this is outrageous. And Leslie, with all due respect, exceeded expectations. We knew a long time ago which states were not going to participate. And then the federal government said, we'll build this website. And Megan, I'd remind you, there are major websites like Amazon that sell thousands or hundreds of thousands of different products from thousands of different manufacturers to millions or tens of millions of Americans every day, and they managed to make it happen. But the federal government, they could screw up anything, and they did. And in this case, you know that some of the flaws they're not just glitches that need a nip here and a tuck there. These are major problems with the software that don't look like they're going to be resolved very easily by just fixing a few lines of code.
Amazon, you mentioned Amazon, they apparently have more than 70 million visitors per week.
There you go.
70 million, they managed to handle it. According to the administration, they got more than 8 million hits in the first week, and the Washington Post estimates 10 million. And they couldn't, it was a complete disaster. The question is, Leslie, if they can't even handle the rollout of the health care law, why should we be entrusting them to handle our actual health care?
Well, first of all, a website is very different than a health management system.
Let's hope so.
I would be a terrible website developer, but I'm an excellent businesswoman with my medical center that I'm a partial owner of. One is obviously signing somebody up. Another is providing care. We have been providing care for decades with Medicare. I haven't seen anybody in the American public, including congressional members left and right, giving that back. And Lars, to your point about Amazon, Twitter had a crash for the same reason, the volume, a spike in the volume, and so did the states of Connecticut and the District of Columbia. So this wasn't something that just was experienced on a national level, on a federal level.
Leslie, this wasn't just a spike. The fact is, people got there, they got on, they created an account, and then when they came back to try to sign on and actually contemplate purchasing something, they found out that the system wouldn't log them on. Now, that's not just a volume problem, that's a problem with the basic software. And Megan, not to get too far into the weeds, they had 50 some major subcontractors that built different pieces of this. And instead of the federal government going to the private sector and saying, we need somebody who's used to overseeing the rollout of a major piece of software and a major system like this built by multiple vendors, they said, we'll oversee it. The federal government lacks the capability. They don't have any background in it. They may lack the
capability, but the question is, where's the accountability? I mean, we've seen this repeatedly where people have looked to the administration and said, okay, mistakes happen. People make bad decisions sometimes, but where's the accountability? I mean, who who gets fired.
Well-
They asked this after Benghazi. They asked this after Fast and
Yep.
Furious. And now they asked this after a disastrous rollout. You heard Robert Gibbs say it, that somebody ought to be fired. I'll give you the last word on it, Leslie. I got to run.
By voting in favor of this,
We have 6 months of open enrollment. Of course, the end of December is the enrollment period for start January. We have until the end of March. I say at that point, if things are not up and running as they should be, then maybe a head or two should roll. But I don't think you just throw out Kathleen Sebelius, who needs to oversee this program, not just a website and people logging on at this point in time.
All right, Leslie, Lars, great to see you both. And the debate continues
Megan.
now. We are